One of the most mysterious Zelda games has to be Majora's Mask, and as you can imagine, there are a bunch of myths out there about this game. Claims that could either be right or wrong. And so today we will look at some of those to find out what the truth is. For example, do the bobbleheads shake on the final day? Will the mayor reveal certain secrets if you talk to him with the Mask of Truth? And can you make the jugglers drop their balls? Well, let's find out. Number 20. In many of the Zelda games that Nintendo has released, you can use water to help certain plants grow. And this is also seen in Majora's Mask with the magic beans, which are even 100% required at certain points of the game. However, I saw some people claim that you can also use water to bring back other plants, like Dekubabas, the hostile plant enemies that will attack you as soon as you come close. But can you bring them back after killing them using water? Well, I grabbed some fresh spring water, defeated one of these devil plants, and tried to bring it back by giving it water. But as soon as I killed one, it completely disappeared. And then when I poured out the water, nothing happened. And I attempted this multiple times, but no matter what I did, the Dekubabas never grew back. Well, unless I reloaded the area. So yeah, this doesn't work. Number 19. One of the highlights of this game is swimming as a Zora. Nintendo did a really good job with these controls because moving around underwater feels amazing. However, as far as I can remember, you never really used this ability outside of the Great Bay. And then I wondered, can you swim through the poison seen in the swamp? Or do you just take damage and so you can't swim? Well, I went there to find out what would happen. However, I ran into two big issues. First of all, the damage of the poison around the temple had me flying constantly. And secondly, I couldn't find any water that was deep enough to swim in. So I couldn't even really find water where I could test this myth. And with me constantly taking damage, I would say the chances of this working are quite low. But in the end, there's no way of testing this due to the shallow waters that are found in the swamp. Number 18. When I search the web for interesting stuff to test or to try, I often come across insane claims that must be wrong. However, I will try them anyway because I love to be surprised, and often I'm also wrong. So it's good to double check stuff. And our next myth is one that falls into this category, because apparently there's a Loneguay that flies around Clock Town, and if you play one of the temple songs, it will start dropping rupees. So I went outside, spotted the Gway in question, and played the Goron's lullaby to see if anything would happen. Now, as soon as I finished the song, the camera focused in on the Gway, and then it bolted, dropping rupees constantly. But keeping up with it was pretty hard because man oh man, he was going fast. But in the end, this claim is true, although the Gway doesn't drop that much money. Number 17. Now this next one is quite logical. In the Woodfall Temple you use the bow and some fire to light certain braziers for a puzzle. And this works anywhere in the game. So now I wonder, what happens if you shoot an ice arrow through a flame? Will it turn the arrow into a normal one? Or will it be on fire all of a sudden? Well, I had no idea, so I tried it. Now when I shot one of these arrows through it, I could see the big ice effect as soon as it hit the wall in the back. So the flame didn't get rid of the ice effect. And I also didn't see a flame, which is something you do see if you shoot a normal arrow through it. So I guess this magical ice is more powerful than a lit brazier. Number 16. Many of the big events seen in the game happen again and again. Each time you go through the cycle, you will have a deja vu moment. But sometimes I see people wonder whether everything always plays out the same. For example, on day 2, it rains. However, does this always happen? Well, after going through many cycles, I saw that it would rain no matter what. So yeah, it is literally baked into the game, and no matter what you do, day 2 will always be a pretty wet experience. Number 15. As most people know, Majora's Mask is a sequel to the world-famous Ocarina of Time. And in that game, you can use the ocarina to play all kinds of magical songs. And you learn a bunch of new ones when you end up in Termina. But do any of the old songs still work in Majora's Mask? Well, according to some folks online, you can use some of them. Specifically the Sun Song, which can advance time from night to day or day to night. So I tried to play the song, but no matter how often I did this, nothing happened. happened. Which makes sense because there's already another secret song in the game that has the exact same power, the Song of Double Time, which you can learn from the Scarecrow in the Common Observatory. So if you really want to advance time, then that's a better option. Number 14. This game is quite unique, and this also goes for all the songs you use during your adventure. A good example is the Song of Healing, which is also known as the song that rips people's faces off. But apparently it can also be used for something else. I saw people online claim that if you use the song in front of a broken sign, then it will repair the sign just like it does with people's soul. Now, I had never attempted this myself, but I guess it does make sense. However, still, I was skeptical, so I tested it. And yeah, as you can see right here, the sign magically restores itself, and no matter how many times I cut it into pieces, the song kept working. It almost looks like it reverses time itself to fix it, which looks pretty cool, and clearly this claim is true. Number 13. When I look for myths to include in these videos, I search high and low, and often end up on weird forums that I have never heard of. And on one of those, I found the following myth. And I gotta say, it's a pretty wild one, because someone on there said, and I quote, "When you see Skull Kid for the second time at the top of the clock tower, after beating Majora at least once, the cutscene will be different, because Tattle knows what's gonna happen." Now, I read this and thought to myself, yeah, no way, brother. I do not believe that for a second. But I didn't really have the time to replay the whole game. So I got a 100% finished save file, loaded the game, and confronted Majora to see if there would be any difference at all. And it didn't seem like anything was different, until I saw these lines, which show that Tattle knew about the entire situation before being told about it. In general, the second half of this cutscene is very different, which was surprising to me because I never knew this. But now I wonder, how does she know about all of this? Number 12. Now, while most myths on this list are stuff that I've never heard of, some of them aren't a mystery to me, because I actually tried them before on my own. And this next one is another that I had heard of before. We can all remember this event in the game, Seikon stealing the bomb bag from the old lady, and if you save her, you get the blast mask as a reward. But you can also do something else, killing Seikon by shooting the bomb bag on his back because it will blow up. So I did just that, and as you can see, that is exactly what happens. And I knew about this because I accidentally did this myself once. Which isn't the best, because now the old lady has nothing to sell because everything was blown up. However, the craziest thing about all of this is, the old lady doesn't even care that Seikon is freaking dead. Clearly, she isn't as innocent as most people think. Number 11. Back in 2000, when Majora's Mask came out, video games weren't as complex as they are currently. For example, in a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, you can see all kinds of cool interactions between camp members, and only recently did NPCs become more complex. However, Majora's Mask was ahead of its time because it already had this. The world was small, and the central conflict of the world potentially ending led to some interesting stuff. And one thing you can follow up close is the fight between those that want to flee and those that want to stay and celebrate the festival, with Foreman Muto refusing to run, even during the final hours. And according to the internet, he'll confess how he really feels to you on the last day when you're a Deku Scrub. So I talked to him, and as you can see, he does have some unique dialogue where he does a lot of ranting. He talks about how he's disappointed with the tower's size, apologizes for not finishing it, wishes that he could scare away the moon, and so much more. To be honest, he's just fed up with it all. So yeah, he is more honest and direct with you in your Deku form. So I guess this claim is true. Number 10. There are so many unique characters in this game that it's hard to pick a favorite, but one that is certainly up there is the Swordsman. He looks like a crazy hippie, but in reality he's a master swordsman that will teach you for a fee. And he's an interesting fella for sure, but he can also be grumpy when you come in with a mask on, because he will refuse to teach you. But apparently he has a lot of unique responses for the masks in the game, so I talked to him with some of them on. And yeah, I could clearly see that Nintendo took the time to add special responses for all of them. For example, when you put on the stone mask, he will say, is somebody there? And if you put on the bunny mask or great fairy mask, he will say some not so PG stuff that sounds way too dirty. Overall, the reactions are fun, interesting, or weird. And I love that Nintendo put in the effort to add all of these, even though the masks aren't necessary here whatsoever. And I would encourage you to try all of them yourself, because it's too much to show off in this one video. Number 9. Now, while we are here anyway, we might as well test another claim I found that involves this goofy swordsman as well. Because when you go there for training, most people use the standard one-handed sword and Hylian shield combo. But can you also use another weapon? For example, the Great Fairy Sword, a mighty two-hander that you can obtain from the Great Fairy in Ikana Canyon. Well, I decided to give this a shot. So I got some rupees to pay him and decided to go for the novice training to test this out. And beforehand, I equipped the sword so I was ready to use it. But when I tried to pull it out, I noticed something. I just couldn't. Even when I reopened the menu and re-equipped it, I wasn't allowed to grab any C-stick items. So even though it could have easily worked, you're not allowed to use this weapon to complete this training, which makes me a bit sad. Number 8. Skull Kid and Majora are some of the most interesting villains in the entire series, because they are anything but conventional. While Ganondorf always wants to rule the world, this isn't the case with the Skull Kid and Majora. They just want to have fun, prank people, and consume the world, whatever that means. And signs of this can be seen everywhere in the game, from small things like forms of graffiti on the outer walls of Clock Town, to transforming people into children like he did with Cafe. However, apparently he also made pure art in the fields outside of Clock Town, which can only be seen when looking through the telescope. So I went there to see if I could find anything. And yeah, I did. Here you can see a gigantic outline of Skull Kid himself in this field. It can be a bit hard to see, but it's clearly him. And as far as I know, this is his largest piece by far. Everything else is child's play in comparison. In the end, it's just a shame that his jokes and pranks evolved into something much more sinister, which could have been the end of Termina. Number 7. When Nintendo remade Majora's Mask for the 3DS, a lot changed. Obviously the game became prettier, but they also added a lot of new stuff. Mostly all kinds of details that weren't seen in the original. For example, the Stockpot Inn became a lot nicer than the one seen in the N64 version. But they also added a bunch of new Easter eggs. For example, at Romani Ranch, you can find a plush of both Epona and Ganondorf's horse from Ocarina of Time. But apparently these are also seen in the original, which I didn't believe at all. So I traveled to the ranch and checked the bedroom to see if I could find anything. However, no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find much. It is nowhere to be found, not even in the other rooms or the barn. So clearly this Easter egg can only be found in the new remake, which makes sense. Almost all of the Easter eggs seen in that game weren't in the N64 version. I mean, they only had a year to make that game back then, so yeah, they didn't have time for stuff like that. Number 6. Now, when the world is about to end, people become a lot more direct and honest. I mean, it might be the last time they can. And this is seen all over the game, with the guards becoming very anxious on the final day, and the brave swordsman cowering in the back of his dojo during the final hours. However, there's one person who will share his true feelings with you near the end of it all, the owner of the milk bar. Apparently, he will say something very nice to you if you visit on the final night. So I went there and talked to him to see what he would say. When I spoke to him, he said that everyone is taking refuge, but he still runs the bar because he's the sort of fella who will stay at his business through thick and thin, and he was hoping that one of his favorite customers would still appear tonight. And then he says that he wasn't wrong because Link did show up, so you are one of his favorite customers in town, which is a bit odd because you don't visit him that often, and in some cycles you have never even spoken to him, which was the case for me when I recorded this, but apparently time travel doesn't really affect his memory. Number 5. In a game like Ocarina of Time, the threat of Ganondorf can't really be felt until it's too late. The future version of Hyrule is where you get to see all the damage. However, in Majora's Mask, the threat of Majora and the moon is a constant, creeping closer each day, which is probably an allegory for the deadline the developers had. And on the final day, the moon moving even makes the world of Termina shake, which you can feel no matter where you are. But some folks claim that it also affects certain items found in the world, specifically the bobblehead cows that are seen in many homes and shops. Each time you feel the world shake, these heads will start moving like crazy. So I went to the bomb shop to see if this would really happen. And yeah, as you can see right here, this does happen, which is a great little detail from the developers. And I'm curious, what else will it affect? Number 4. One thing I like about making these videos is that I get to do some in-depth research, and I usually learn something new about a game that I didn't know before. And I found one really obscure claim about this game that is kind of pointless, but fun if it's true. As we all know, the day and night cycles of the game matter a lot. It is literally a game about constantly running out of time. And apparently the night sky changes depending on the file name you choose, specifically the stars you see. So naturally, I tested this claim by making a couple of different save files and recording the sky at the same time in-game. And as you can see, it is real. The sky truly is different depending on the file name. However, now I wonder, why did they include this? Does it serve some purpose, or is it a side effect of something else in the game? Because I can't imagine that they put this in on purpose. I mean, like I mentioned multiple times at this point, the developers only had a year to make this entire game. So, why did they do this? Who knows? Number 3. When I was a kid, I was completely unaware of all the connections between the inhabitants of Clock Town. And in the past, way back, I made some theory videos on this because I loved all those little details. Now, one person who is quite interesting is the mayor, the leader of the town that holds all the power. However, according to some, he will reveal certain secrets if you talk to him with the Mask of Truth on. A mask that was made by the Sheikah that forces anything or anyone to only speak the truth. So using this on the mayor could work. So I gave it a shot. First I got rid of everyone in the room, and then I talked to him without the mask on. And all he would say is that I should take refuge. After that I put the mask on and talked to him again, but his response didn't change at all, which was very disappointing. It would have been cool if he revealed some dark secrets, but no. Number 2. While something like a bomb or a bomb chew is fun, it doesn't really work for every obstacle you will encounter in the game. The giant boulder that leads to Romani Ranch is quite hard to destroy, and only one thing will do the job: the mighty powder keg, which is probably the second biggest explosive of the entire series. Because I mean, that one giant bomb flower from A Link Between Worlds is even bigger. However, I wondered, what happens if you're in the blast radius compared to a normal bomb? Does it deal significantly more damage, or is it all the same? Well, I grabbed both of them and tested it. When the normal bomb went off, I took a quarter heart damage. And when I did this with the powder keg, I took the same amount of damage. So I grabbed another and did it again. But the result was the exact same, and I was super disappointed. Why is this gigantic bomb so weak? It really makes no sense. Number 1. Due to the big Carnival of Time that is held in Clock Town each year, the place is filled with all kinds of performers. You find them all across town, and after seeing them again while I was recording for this video, I wondered, can you mess with any of them? Because I saw the jugglers practicing here in East Clock Town. So I thought to myself, if I transform into a Goron and ground pound next to them, will this disrupt them at all? Will they drop their balls or something? Well, who knows? So I went to them, put on the mask, and gave it a shot. But as you can see, I wasn't able to break their focus. No matter what I did, they didn't slow down and never dropped any of their balls. They are just too good, I guess. Which made me a bit sad, because man oh man, it would have been great if Nintendo actually put that into the game. Now those were all the myths we had. However, I made many more videos like this, so be sure to check them out. And don't forget, be sure to leave a like, share any of your ideas below, and subscribe so you won't miss any future videos.